The Cuban Missile Crisis, a tense standoff that shaped history. The year was 1962, and the world stood on the precipice of nuclear annihilation during the 13 tense days of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union reached its zenith as the two superpowers engaged in a high-stakes game of geopolitical chess. The strategic moves and counter-moves during this critical period not only defined the balance of power but also underscored the fragility of global stability. This video explores the gripping narrative of the Cuban Missile Crisis, revealing the catastrophic events that led the world to the brink of nuclear conflict. To comprehend the gravity of the Cuban Missile Crisis, one must first delve into the geopolitical backdrop of the time. The Cold War, a state of political and military tension between the USA and the USSR, had been simmering for years. The United States, under President John F. Kennedy, was committed to containing the spread of communism, while the Soviet Union sought to expand its influence globally. Cuba, under the charismatic Fidel Castro, emerged as a focal point in this ideological struggle. In 1959, Castro's revolution transformed Cuba into a socialist state, alarming the United States. The failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, a covert attempt by the CIA to overthrow Castro, only heightened tensions. The Soviet Union, eager to counterbalance American influence, saw an opportunity to flex its muscles in the Western Hemisphere. In 1962, secretly and strategically, the Soviets began deploying nuclear missiles in Cuba, within striking distance of major US cities. The first inkling of this grave development came on October 14, 1962, when US reconnaissance planes captured photographic evidence of Soviet missile installations in Cuba. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Kennedy administration, unleashing a wave of suspense that gripped the nation and reverberated across the globe. The images were chilling, depicting the unmistakable silhouette of nuclear warheads that could alter the course of history. President Kennedy faced an agonizing dilemma. The presence of Soviet missiles in Cuba posed an existential threat to the United States. The prospect of a nuclear strike, with devastating consequences, forced Kennedy to confront the Soviets head-on. The world watched with bated breath as the United States and the Soviet Union entered a dangerous standoff. As the situation escalated, the world held its breath, teetering on the brink of catastrophe. Kennedy, aware of the gravity of the situation, addressed the nation on October 22, 1962. In a televised speech, he revealed the existence of the Cuban missile sites and announced a naval blockade around Cuba to prevent further Soviet shipments. The tension reached its climax as the world waited to see how the Soviet Union, led by Premier Nikita Khrushchev, would respond. Khrushchev's initial reaction was defiant, dismissing the blockade as an act of aggression. The world anxiously awaited the next move in this deadly game of brinkmanship. Would the Soviet Union back down, or would the two superpowers collide in a nuclear showdown? The climactic moment approached as the fate of millions hung in the balance. The 13 days. The ensuing 13 days became a harrowing chapter in world history, with each passing moment carrying the weight of impending doom. Behind closed doors, secret negotiations unfolded through back channels. The Kennedy administration communicated with the Soviets, desperately seeking a peaceful resolution. Meanwhile, the world remained on edge, uncertain of what each new day might bring. In a dramatic turn of events, Khrushchev signaled a willingness to engage in diplomatic talks. The United States and the Soviet Union began a delicate dance of negotiation, with each side carefully maneuvering to protect its interests while avoiding the ultimate catastrophe of nuclear war. The suspense heightened as the clock ticked away, and the world held its breath. The resolution. On October 28, 1962, the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. In a surprising and pivotal moment, Khrushchev announced that the Soviet Union would dismantle its missile installations in Cuba and remove them in exchange for a US pledge not to invade the island nation. The resolution of the Cuban Missile Crisis marked a triumphant moment for diplomacy and averted the unthinkable. The suspense that had gripped the world for 13 days now gave way to a sense of relief, but the scars of the crisis would linger. The United States secretly agreed to dismantle its missiles in Turkey, a gesture intended to address Soviet security concerns. The Cuban Missile Crisis, while avoiding immediate disaster, left an indelible mark on the global psyche, serving as a stark reminder of the perils of nuclear brinkmanship. The Cuban Missile Crisis stands as a testament to the fragility of international relations and the high-stakes nature of Cold War politics. The event that enveloped the world during those 13 days was palpable, with the specter of nuclear war looming large. The climactic resolution, achieved through delicate diplomacy and strategic compromise, showcased the importance of dialogue in averting catastrophe. As the Cuban Missile Crisis faded into history, it left behind valuable lessons about the consequences of unchecked power and the necessity of diplomatic solutions. The world had come perilously close to the brink of Armageddon, but the crisis served as a wake-up call, prompting both superpowers to reevaluate their approach to global security. The Cuban Missile Crisis, with its suspenseful narrative and climactic resolution, remains a pivotal moment that shaped the course of the Cold War and altered the trajectory of world events.